Commander Velthar pressed his face against the cold metal of the transport ship's window. His home planet Kythera looked like a blue marble growing bigger and bigger as they got closer. He had been away for 3 years fighting in the Great Galactic War. 3 long years of blood and death and terrible sounds that still echoed in his mind. His forearms hung at his sides like broken branches. The shiny plates that covered his body like armor were cracked and scarred from countless battles. Other passengers on the ship talked quietly about going home, about seeing their families again, about the victory over the Devourers. But Velthar felt no joy. He felt only a deep cold in his chest that never went away. The war was over. They had won. The machines called Devourers that ate entire planets had been stopped. But the victory felt hollow to Velthar. Every night when he tried to sleep, he saw faces. Human faces. And something else. Something his mind refused to remember clearly. The transport ship landed with a soft thud on the docking platform. Velthar gathered his few belongings and walked slowly down the ramp. The air of Kythera smelled like home, like the purple flowers that grew near his childhood dwelling. But even this familiar scent could not lift the weight from his shoulders. He took a ground transport to the Veterans Memorial Center in the capital city. The building was made of the same crystalline material as his people's bodies, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Inside, dozens of former soldiers sat in circles talking about their experiences. Some laughed, some cried. All of them carried the invisible wounds of war. Velthar found a seat in the back of the room. The discussion leader, an old warrior named Morketh, was asking veterans to share their stories about alien allies during the war. Several spoke warmly about the Zinthari with their multiple eyes or the Altarians with their graceful movements. Then someone mentioned the humans. The humans were incredible fighters, said Kevlar, a young soldier who had lost 2 of his 4 arms in battle. They never gave up. Never retreated. They saved my unit at the Battle of Proxima Station. Others nodded and shared similar stories. But as the praise for humanity continued, Velthar felt his secondary heart begin to race. His hands started to shake. Images flashed in his mind like lightning strikes. A human soldier named Jinwu. Blood. So much blood. But Jinwu kept fighting. Kept fighting when he should have been dead. Velthar stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air," he said and walked quickly toward the exit. Behind him, the conversation continued, but he could not bear to hear any more talk about human bravery. Outside, he leaned against the building's smooth wall and tried to calm his breathing. The memories were like broken glass in his mind. Sharp, pieces that cut him when he tried to examine them too closely. Commander Velthar? He turned to see Dr. Nimara approaching. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. During the war, she had worked with the medical team studying different species biology. Her main eyes were kind, but her secondary eyes showed concern. "You left the meeting rather quickly," she said. "Are you well?" Velthar looked at her for a long moment. Of all the people he could talk to, perhaps she would understand. "Doctor, during the war, did you study human biology?" "Yes, extensively. They were fascinating subjects. Their physiology is quite different from ours, but not unusual among carbon-based life forms." "Why do you ask?" "I served with them, on their ship, the Defiant. I was a liaison officer meant to help coordinate between human and Kytherian forces." He paused, struggling with words. "Something happened during the final battles. Something I cannot fully remember." Dr. Nimara stepped closer. "What kind of something?" "The humans I served with were good people. Captain Deho was kind to me. Their medic, Boram, taught me their card games. Jinwu showed me pictures of his family, back on Earth. They were just ordinary people like us. But when the fighting started, they became something else. Something that my mind refuses to accept." Velthar's voice dropped to a whisper. "I think I have forgotten things on purpose, Doctor. Important things. Terrible things." Dr. Nimara studied his face with all 4 of her eyes. In her years of medical practice, she had seen many veterans struggle with traumatic memories. But there was something different about Velthar's distress. Something specific to his experience with humans. Commander, would you be willing to undergo memory enhancement therapy? We have techniques that can help recover suppressed memories. It might help you process whatever you experienced. Velthar was quiet for a long time. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the Memorial Center's courtyard. Other veterans were leaving the building, heading home to families and lives they were trying to rebuild. Doctor, he said finally, what if some memories are suppressed for good reason? What if remembering will make things worse? Sometimes, the fear of a memory is worse than the memory itself, she replied gently. But the choice is yours. Velthar nodded slowly. The nightmares were getting worse anyway. Every night he saw human faces doing impossible things. Every night he woke up screaming about blood and broken bodies that kept moving. Yes, he said. I think I need to remember. Dr. Nimara's clinic was quiet except for the soft humming of machines. The walls were made of smooth white stone that glowed gently with inner light. Velthar lay on a special bed that could connect to his mind. Thin wires touched his head, and he could feel a gentle tingling sensation. Are you comfortable? Dr. Nimara asked. She sat beside him with a small device that showed his brain patterns as colored waves. As comfortable as one can be when opening old wounds, Velthar replied. His 4 hands gripped the sides of the bed. We will go very slowly. If you feel too much pain, we can stop at any time. She touched a button on her device. Now tell me about your first day aboard the human ship. The memories came back like water flowing into a dry riverbed. Velthar remembered walking up the ramp of the human ship called Defiant. The air inside smelled different from Catherian ships. It was warmer and had a strange sweetness to it. Captain Deho had greeted him at the entrance. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes. Welcome aboard, Commander, he had said in careful Catherian. We are honored to have you with us. The captain was very kind, Velthar told Dr. Nimara. He showed me to my quarters personally. He even had special food prepared that my people could eat. The memory felt good and warm. Velthar smiled as he remembered how the human crew had tried to make him feel welcome. Jin Wu, the weapons officer, had been especially friendly. He was a young man with a quick smile who loved to tell jokes. Boram, the ship's medic, was a quiet woman who spoke softly and always seemed to be helping someone. They treated me like family, Velthar said. During the long space flights, Boram taught me a human card game called poker. Jin Wu showed me pictures of his wife and baby daughter on Earth. Captain Deho would invite me to eat meals with the senior officers. This sounds like a positive experience, Dr. Nimara observed. When did things change? The warm feeling faded from Velthar's voice. When we reached the Kepler system, that was where the final battle would happen. The Devourers had gathered their largest fleet there. Every ship in the galaxy was coming to fight. The memory became darker. Velthar could see the massive Devourer ships hanging in space like black metal storms. There were hundreds of them, each one the size of a small moon. Their surfaces crawled with weapons and the mechanical arms they used to tear apart planets. The battle was supposed to last for days, Velthar said. But things went wrong from the beginning. The Devourers had new weapons, new tactics. Within the first few hours, we were losing badly. Dr. Nimara watched the colored waves on her screen. She could see when Velthar's memories became painful. The waves turned red and jagged. What happened to the Defiant during the battle? We were assigned to attack the Devourer command ship. It was the biggest one, protected by dozens of smaller vessels. Captain Deho knew it was almost certain death, but he never hesitated. Velthar's secondary heart began beating faster. The attack run was terrible. Ships were exploding all around us. The Devourers were firing everything they had. The memory became more vivid. Velthar could smell the acrid smoke that filled the ship's corridors. He could hear the screaming of metal as the hull was hit by enemy fire. And he could hear something else. Something that should not have been possible. We took a direct hit to the bridge, he said slowly. I was thrown against a wall. When I got up, I saw... He stopped, his breathing becoming rapid. What did you see, Commander? Jinwoo. He was at his weapons station, but his left arm was gone, completely torn off by flying metal. There was blood everywhere, so much blood that it was pooling on the floor. Dr. Nimara leaned forward. What did he do? He kept working. He kept firing the weapons. For 20 minutes, Doctor. 20 minutes with his arm torn off and blood pouring out of him. How is that possible? Any of my people would have been unconscious from shock in seconds. The colored waves on the screen turned bright red. Velthar was reliving the trauma as if it was happening right now. And Boram, he continued, his voice getting higher. She was hit by metal fragments. I could see them sticking out of her chest and stomach. Wounds that would kill any rational being instantly. But she kept moving around the bridge, treating other wounded crew members. She worked for over an hour with holes in her body. Commander, try to stay calm. These are just memories now. But Velthar was lost in the past. Captain Daeho fought a devourer boarding party hand to hand. I saw him take hits that should have stopped his heart. His ribs were broken. His face was covered in blood. But he kept fighting. He kept fighting until every enemy was dead. The memory reached its peak. Velthar saw himself staring at the human crew after the battle was over. They were all still alive. Badly wounded, but alive and still working. Still fighting. Still refusing to give up even when their bodies should have failed. They should have been dead, he whispered. All of them should have been dead. But they kept going, like they did not know how to stop. Dr. Nimara turned off the machine. Velthar's memories were clear now, but she could see the terror in his eyes. He had remembered something that challenged everything he thought he knew about how living things worked. Commander, I think we need to look deeper into this. There may be something about human biology that we do not understand. The next day, Velthar returned to Dr. Nimara's clinic. He had not slept at all the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jinwoo's face covered in blood, still smiling as he fired the ship's weapons with one arm. The image made his stomach turn cold. Are you ready to continue? Dr. Nimara asked as she prepared the memory machine. I need to know the truth, Velthar said, even if it frightens me. The wires touched his head again, and the gentle tingling began. This time, Dr. Nimara guided him to memories he had buried even deeper. Memories from after the battle, when curiosity had driven him to do something he probably should not have done. Tell me what happened after the fighting ended, she said softly. The memory surfaced slowly, like something rising from deep water. Velthar remembered walking through the damaged corridors of the Defiant. The human crew was cleaning up and repairing systems. What struck him was how normal they seemed. Jinwoo was telling jokes again, even though his left arm was now replaced with a mechanical one. Boram was humming a quiet song as she organized medical supplies. They acted like nothing unusual had happened, Velthar said. Like fighting with fatal wounds was just another day at work. But Velthar had been a military officer for many years. He knew what fatal wounds looked like. What he had seen during the battle should have been impossible. So that night, when the human crew was sleeping, he had snuck into their medical bay. I accessed their medical scanners, he admitted to Dr. Nimara. I know it was wrong, but I had to understand. The medical bay had been full of data from the recent battle. Velthar had pulled up the scans of his human crewmates, expecting to find some kind of advanced medical technology that had kept them alive. Instead, he found something much more disturbing. Young Sik, one of the engineers, had lost 60% of his blood during the battle. 60%, Doctor. That should kill any living thing. But the scan showed he had continued working for 3 hours after reaching that level of blood loss. Dr. Nimara made a note on her tablet. What else did you find? Sujin. She was barely 18 years old. The scans showed massive internal damage to her organs. Her heart had been punctured by metal fragments. But somehow she had kept operating the ship's engines for 2 hours while her heart was leaking blood into her chest cavity. The memory became clearer and more terrible. Velthar remembered staring at scan after scan, each one showing human crew members who had continued fighting with injuries that would have killed any other species within minutes. Their brain scans were the worst part, he said, his voice becoming very quiet. I compared them to Cytherian brain patterns. Doctor, there is something wrong with human brains. They do not have the neural pathways that tell them to stop when they are dying. Dr. Nimara sat up straighter. What do you mean? Every species in the galaxy has built-in safety systems. When we are badly injured, our brains shut down non-essential functions to preserve life. We become unconscious, or at least unable to fight. It is basic biology. But humans do not have this. Velthar remembered scanning through medical databases that night, comparing human brain structure to dozens of other species. The difference was clear and terrifying. Where other species had neural circuits that would force them to stop fighting, when death was near, humans had nothing. No safety switch, no automatic shutdown. They can fight until their bodies completely fail, he said. Not because they choose to, but because their brains cannot tell them to stop. Dr. Nimara was taking rapid notes now. Commander, I need to access some classified files. This information is too important to ignore. She entered her security codes into the clinic's computer system. As a xenobiologist who had worked during the war, she had clearance to view certain military medical records. What she found made her secondary heart skip several beats. Velthar, look at this. She turned the screen toward him. These are official Cytherian military medical reports from the war. The files were marked with the highest security classifications. They contained detailed studies of human biology conducted by military doctors. Page after page of data that confirmed Velthar's worst fears. Test subject H-47, human designation Minho. She read aloud. Continued combat effectiveness observed for 4.7 hours after sustaining injuries that would incapacitate any known Cytherian soldier within 12 minutes. Another report. Human subject Yunjie demonstrated ability to function normally with blood, oxygen levels that would cause immediate unconsciousness in 97% of tested galactic species. The most disturbing report was from the Chief Military Medical Officer. Recommendation. Human allies represent unprecedented combat capability due to apparent lack of standard biological safety mechanisms. Subjects appear unable to recognize approaching death, allowing continued function far beyond normal physiological limits. Velthar felt sick as he read report after report. Our military knew. They knew humans were different. They knew humans could fight in ways that would kill us. There is more, Dr. Nimara said grimly. She opened another file. This is a communication from the Galactic Council during the war. The message was short but chilling. Human ground forces report 300% higher survival rates in situations classified as certain death for other species. Recommend continued deployment in highest risk scenarios. Velthar understood now why his memories had been so disturbing. He had witnessed something that challenged the basic understanding of how life worked. Humans were not just brave soldiers. They were biological anomalies who could fight beyond the point where any rational being would die. They saved the galaxy, he said slowly. But they saved it by being the most frightening thing any of us had ever seen, and they do not even know what they are. Dr. Nimara's fingers moved quickly across the computer screen. She had spent 3 days digging deeper into the classified military files. What she found was worse than either she or Velthar had imagined. Commander, you need to see this, she said when Velthar arrived at the clinic. Her face looked tired and worried. I found communications between the different alien military leaders during the war. Velthar sat down heavily in the chair beside her desk. He had not been sleeping well since learning the truth about human biology. Every time he thought about his friends aboard the Defiant, he felt a cold fear in his stomach. Dr. Nimara opened the first file. This is from Admiral Kexnor of the Altarian fleet. He commanded the 3rd battle group during the siege of Titan. Station. The message appeared on the screen in the flowing script of the Altarian language with a translation below. Day 47 of the siege. The human units continued to demonstrate disturbing combat behavior. Soldier Hyunjai of the Human Marines, Sustained injuries that our medical staff classified as fatal. Loss of limb, severe blood loss, multiple organ damage. Yet this soldier continued fighting for 6 hours. 6 hours. Our warriors would have died in the first 10 minutes. 6 hours, Velthar repeated quietly. How is that possible? Dr. Nimara opened another file. This one is from General Mordak of the Zenthari Alliance. He was at the Battle of the Outer Ring. The Zenthari message was more direct. Human casualties are meaningless to predict. Standard battle calculations assume 30% losses will break enemy morale. Human forces sustain 70% casualties and fight harder. Watching human soldier named Taman drag himself across battlefield with broken spine to continue firing weapon. This is not normal behavior. This is not rational. More files appeared. Communication after communication from alien commanders who had fought alongside human forces. Each message told the same disturbing story. Humans who fought with wounds that should have killed them. Humans who seemed to become more dangerous as more of their friends died. Humans who simply did not know when to stop. Here is one from Commander Zilketh of the Vorthon Navy, Dr. Nimara said. He was aboard a human ship during the final assault on the Devourer homeworld. The message made Velthar's hands shake. Human crew member So Young was exposed to vacuum for over 3 minutes when hull was breached. When we rescued her, she should have been dead. Brain death occurs in 2 minutes without oxygen. But she was still conscious and asking about the status of our weapon systems. Our medical officer examined her and found evidence that humans can survive conditions that would kill any rational being. Dr. Nimara pulled up another screen. But the worst part is this. Look at these communications from the Galactic Council itself. The official seal of the Galactic Council appeared on the screen. These were not battlefield reports. These were policy decisions made by the galaxy's highest leaders. From the Council Military Planning Committee, Dr. Nimara read, Subject: Optimal deployment of human forces. Analysis shows human units are most effective when placed in scenarios with 90% or higher projected casualty rates. Other species cannot function under these conditions, but humans appear to thrive. Velthar felt sick. They knew. The Council knew that humans were different and they used it. There is more. Dr. Nimara's voice was grim. Council Medical Advisory Board recommendation. Human forces should be assigned to missions classified as suicide runs for other species. Their unique biology allows success in scenarios where any other species would face certain death. The files kept coming. Strategic planning documents that discussed humans like they were weapons instead of people. Medical reports that studied human psychology during combat. Communications between species leaders who were both grateful for human help and terrified by what humans could do. One message from the Galactic Defense Coordinator was particularly chilling. Human Regiment led by Colonel Jin A reported successful completion of Mission Category Omega-7. This mission type has a 100% fatality rate for all other species. Human casualties were 85%, but mission succeeded. Survivors reported they would volunteer for similar missions again. Recommend psychological evaluation of human species. They treated us like monsters, Velthar said, reading over Dr. Nimara's shoulder. Not evil monsters, but monsters nonetheless. Dr. Nimara found the final piece of evidence in a communication from the Council's post-war planning committee. The message was dated just days after the Devourers were defeated. From the office of the Galactic Council President, she read, Subject: Post-war integration of human forces. Recommendation: Limit human participation in galactic military operations. While their effectiveness against the Devourers was crucial for victory, their combat capabilities represent a potential long-term destabilization risk. Human units should be assigned to border patrol and low-intensity conflicts only. Velthar understood now. The galaxy had not welcomed humanity as heroes. They had used humans as living weapons against an enemy that could not be defeated by normal means. And now that the war was over, they wanted to keep humans far away from the center of galactic civilization. We won the war, he said slowly, because we allied ourselves with the most frightening species in the galaxy, and the terrible, Part is that humans do not even realize what they are. Dr. Nimara closed the files. The question now is what we do with this information. Do we tell other veterans? Do we inform the public? Do we contact human authorities? Velthar stared at the blank screen for a long time. Somewhere in the galaxy, his human friends were living normal lives, believing they were just ordinary people who had done their duty during the war. They had no idea that every other species in the galaxy saw them as beautiful, terrifying monsters. "I do not know," he said finally. "I honestly do not know." 6 months had passed since Velthar learned the truth about humans. He sat in his small apartment watching the evening news on his wall screen. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the air recycler and the distant sounds of the city outside. The news reporter was talking about a human colony ship that had just arrived at New Geneva, a mining world on the edge of Cytherian space. The camera showed families walking off the ship, carrying their belongings and looking excited about their new home. Children ran around their parents' legs, laughing and playing games. Velthar watched a little human girl named Yunha skip past the camera. She looked about 10 years old with bright eyes and a big smile. Her brother Minho, maybe 14, was helping their parents carry boxes. They looked so normal, so innocent. Just a regular family starting a new life, but Velthar knew what they really were. He knew that little Yunha carried the same genes that had allowed Jinwoo to fight for 20 minutes with his arm torn off. He knew that young Minho had the same biology that let Sujin work for hours with a punctured heart. They were children. Now, but inside them was the capacity to become something that would terrify veteran soldiers from across the galaxy. The thought made him feel cold and sad at the same time. A message chimed on his communication device. It was from Captain Daeho, his old human commander. Velthar had been getting letters from him every few weeks since the war ended. The human had retired to a farming colony and was growing vegetables now. "Dear Velthar," the message began. "I hope this letter finds you well. The harvest season is going wonderfully. My grandson took his first steps last week. He is already trying to climb everything in sight, just like his father did at that age. I often think about our time together on the Defiant. You were a good friend and a fine officer. Please come visit us sometime. We would love to show you the farm." The letter was warm and friendly and completely ordinary. Captain Daeho wrote about his crops and his family and the weather on his colony world. He seemed happy and peaceful. There was no mention of the war, no hint that he understood what he and his crew had done during those final battles. Velthar had received dozens of similar letters from other human crew members. Boram was working at a hospital on Earth, treating sick children. Jinwoo had opened a small restaurant with his wife. Young Sik was teaching engineering at a university. They were all living normal, quiet lives. None of them seemed to understand that they were the most frightening beings in the known galaxy. Dr. Nimura had asked him several times what he wanted to do with the information they had discovered. Other veterans had started coming to him with their own disturbing memories of human allies. Just last week, a former naval officer named Kevarin had described watching a human medic named Sujin continue treating wounded soldiers while her own leg was completely broken. The bone was sticking out of her skin, but she kept working for 3 hours. "They did things that should not be possible," Kevarin had said, his voice shaking. "But they were so kind to us, so gentle and caring. How can someone be a monster and a good person at the same time?" Velthar had comforted him without revealing what he knew. The truth was too dangerous. If the galaxy learned exactly how different humans were, it would change everything. Some species might try to use humans as weapons again. Others might try to avoid them completely. A few might even try to eliminate them out of fear. So Velthar kept the secret. He wrote reports to his military superiors recommending continued psychological support for veterans, but he never mentioned the specific nature of human combat capabilities. When other veterans came to him with disturbing memories, he listened and offered comfort without confirming their suspicions. The hardest part was the letters from his human friends. Each message was a reminder that the people he had served with were both the galaxy's saviors and its most terrifying inhabitants. They had saved everyone from the Devourers, but they had done it by being something that challenged the basic understanding of how living things worked. Velthar kept all the letters in a special box on his desk. Sometimes he would read them and try to reconcile the warm, caring words with the memories of what he had seen during the war. Captain Deho, writing about his grandson's first steps, was the same person who had fought hand-to-hand with mechanical monsters while his ribs were broken. Boram, sharing news about her patients, was the same woman who had worked for hours with metal fragments sticking out of her chest. The evening news finished its story about the colony ship. The reporter moved on to other topics, but Velthar kept thinking about the human families starting their new lives. In a few years, some of those children might join the military. They would serve alongside aliens from other species. And if another war ever came, they would once again become the beautiful, terrifying angels of death that had saved the galaxy. The worst part was that they would never understand why their alien allies looked at them with a mixture of gratitude and fear. They would never know that their greatest strength was also the thing that made them monsters in the eyes of every other species in the galaxy. Velthar turned off the news and sat in the quiet darkness of his apartment. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm. Life went on. The secret remained buried. Sometimes he thought the best protectors were those who never understood how frightening they truly were.